time has come.
Extinction Rebellion is a movement born out of years of failure, essentially. Failure by the government to act on the most existential crisis that we've ever had.
Extinction Rebellion shot to global infamy in April when protesters shut down parts of central London for days. Rebellion! The group claims to have thousands of members across Australia. They've carried out protests from Perth to Brisbane, supergluing themselves to the road and regularly disrupting traffic.
This is the greatest issue that humankind is facing. We're facing complete societal and ecological collapse.
It appears to be willful and deliberate to try and disrupt the activities of ordinary citizens. It's escalating.
This week, Extinction Rebellion is protesting in 60 cities across the world, promising they'll be the most disruptive yet. Today, large rallies were held in Sydney and Brisbane with multiple arrests.
We take no pleasure in disrupting individuals' lives, stopping people getting to work, but we recognise that for decades, protests, petitions, everything else that's been tried has not worked.
Don't you risk alienating the public that you're trying to win over?
We don't need everybody to join us, though, and we can't be ignored. We won't be ignored.
I recognise the right of Extinction Rebellion and their supporters to have a particular political view, but they have no right to impose those political views on the vast majority of other Australians who do not support their position.
Yeah, and we don't have to go around all four.
At this Brisbane warehouse, members are meeting in secret. They're practising using bike locks to chain their necks to barricades, a new tactic they've copied from the unrest in Hong Kong.
We've got barricades that have recently been used in Hong Kong. They saw this sort of technique. So we're going to try out what's been happening in Hong Kong. They cable tie street barricades together. You can go get a $40 bike lock. This is a really accessible thing.
I think that would be very disappointing if people were to behave that way. I think the issues in Hong Kong and the issues in Australia are probably different. The fact is that that is having, we can all see that that is having a significant impact on Hong Kong.
The next morning, the protesters try out the new tactics in the heart of Brisbane's business district.
Behind me, 6 of the protesters have chained themselves to barricades. They've used bike locks and they're refusing to leave. The police are now working out, because they're refusing to leave, how to safely get them off that, whether they need to cut them free. In the meantime, the protesters have shut down Eagle Street, one of the major thoroughfares in the city. A lot of important government and business offices here. The public doesn't seem to be impressed.
Yeah, who bloody cares? Look at the bloody traffic.
It's crap. Absolute crap. They've got no idea what really goes on. None at all.
The police quickly cut each protester free and arrest and charge them. The disruption is over in less than an hour. Protester Connor Brooks is a university student majoring in environmental science.
Lobbying politicians has never worked, really. We've signed petitions, sent emails, sent letters, called our politicians, and nothing has changed, so we're taking it to the front line.
The protesters claim Australia isn't pulling its weight in addressing climate change. Amongst Extinction Rebellion's ambitious demands, calling for the Morrison government to declare a climate emergency, a rapid transition away from coal, and reducing emissions to zero by 2025.
We are not on track to meet any kind of target that will essentially get us out of this mess. Emissions are going up. That is not dealing with the problem. We're exporting more coal than ever before.
Well, effectively what they're asking for is that government should succumb to blackmail, and so that any particular group with a handful of members should somehow be able to dictate to an elected government what should happen, because otherwise I'll do certain things. Well, of course we're not going to succumb to such ridiculous threats.
Resources Minister Matt Canavan concedes Australia's emissions have increased in the year to March, but says that's due to a surge in new gas export facilities.
These facilities do take a lot of electricity domestically, or a lot of gas, to liquefy the gas down to very low temperatures so that it can be put on a boat and shipped overseas. And a lot have come online all at the same time, so that's lifted our emissions. But that same gas also helps lower carbon emissions in destination countries.
17-year-old Tiana Crouch believes older politicians are failing to take seriously the concerns of her generation.
They act like it's not really their problem, or it's like less concerning, it's less of their problem. So children like hear that they're not going to have like a future and they get upset and stressed about that.
We have to push on every front. I think this is a crisis.
Economist John Quiggin agrees with the protesters. Australia needs to take far more action. However, he disagrees that pressuring political parties is a waste of time.
I don't agree. I think it's clear that in the current situation there's not much short-term to be gained by lobbying the government, but clearly where Labor ends up with its position is crucial. There's obviously pressure to back away from the climate commitments that Labor's made. That will be a disaster.
The Queensland government is fed up and is proposing new laws which include jail terms for activists who block transport or business access and use locking devices. Police will also be given new search powers.
Blocking roads is dangerous, it's reckless, it's irresponsible, it's selfish and it's stupid.
Some ministers in the Morrison government have suggested cutting the welfare benefits of protesters.
Ultimately, governments choose to do things which are supported by a majority of the people in a majority of seats. That's what's happened at the federal election 6 months ago. But these groups are not accepting that result, and that's why they're resorting to breaking the law and generally just doing a massive monumental dummy spin.
Extinction Rebellion says 160 people have been arrested in Brisbane since April. It's becoming a drain on resources, according to Chief Superintendent Tony Fleming.
We would argue, and the law would argue, the manner in which they're doing is unacceptable. When you continue to commit the same offences over and over again, we will look to oppose bail.
Are you prepared to go to jail?
Jail is obviously like a scary concept to me, but I think if push comes to shove, we definitely do have a lot of people prepared to face prison time.
I think that's the ideal head height.
But the young protesters are vowing to push on, setting up more disruption on the city streets.
We're going to keep going until it's done and dusted, or until we failed, which will be some years before we've decided. So, yeah, people aren't giving up on this one.